All right, good morning, everybody. This is Tara Weston and Alana Kurtzig from the Oregon Health Authority Health Promotion Chronic Disease Prevention section. And today we are going to go over a webinar where we discuss the Indoor Clean Air Act Policies and Procedures Manual. This is the third of 3 webinars that we will be doing, and we are going to be recording this webinar. So please just know that, and hopefully we will be able to get the webinar up and posted on the web shortly after so that people who were not able to attend or people that want to listen to some of the explanations again can do so through the recording. So we're not going to take attendance because we can see who is on the webinar through the webinar registration list. So welcome everybody. Thank you for being with us. And I'm going to go ahead and get started. I just want to confirm, can someone please let me know that you are able to see the slides?
Yes.
Thank you. Great. All right, so this is our agenda on what we hope to cover today. So we are going to talk about why the policies and procedures around the Indoor Clean Air Act were updated and what the key components and changes are for the Policies and Procedures Manual, and then we will have time for questions that any of you may have. And again, feel free to ask questions throughout. You don't have to hold them to the end. You can ask a question at any point during the webinar. So why did we update the policies and procedures for the Indoor Clean Air Act? So we created a manual, and Ilana sent out last week, she sent out the slides for this webinar, and it also includes in the webinar slides links to where these documents are saved, and we will also be sending out an email next week with, or later this week, I'm sorry, with links to this recording, these slides posted on HipCDIP Connection, as well as where all of the documents are located online so that you all can have access to those. So we updated these policies and procedures for 3 reasons. For consistency across the state. So the Indoor Clean Air Act is a state law, and it's important that information about the law be given consistently throughout the state. And so creating a manual that lays out protocols and the way that things should be done and creates a common understanding of things to make sure that are done or not done, or things that are within the scope or not within the scope, is a good way to help get more consistency across the state. Sustainability is another reason. There is often state and local turnover among staff, both within HipCDIP and in the local public health authorities on a fairly regular basis. And so having these documents posted online for people to read and get baseline understanding at any point in when they come in or out of the workforce is great to help bring staff up to speed and be able to provide accurate and consistent information to public and to the businesses about the Indoor Clean Air Act. And the third reason is for transparency. We will cover this in a minute, but there is a document that's created for inspectors, which would be the TPEP coordinators or the environmental health, or however it works in your local health authority. And then there's also a separate guide for businesses that we created that's public facing for businesses to better understand the Indoor Clean Air Act and how they can comply and what they should expect if there is a violation. So this right here is a picture of part of the delegation agreement that all of the local public health authorities have on file signed with us, the Oregon Health Authority. And this delegation agreement basically states that the Oregon Health Authority enforces the Indoor Clean Air Act, and that local public health authorities have agreements with us on who does what related to the Indoor Clean Air Act. So local public health authorities provide educational and remediation help with businesses, and local public health authorities are not the enforcement entity for the Indoor Clean Air Act. That would be us, the state. We are the ones who enforce the law, and you all are going out as there are complaints in the beginning of the process to investigate and help the businesses understand the violations and help them come into compliance. But we here at the state are the ones that make the determination on if there are violations that are going to be pursued through citations and civil penalties. Are there any questions about any of that? Okay, now I'm going to go over the key components of the documents that Ilana and I have created and are sharing and going to cover today. So the first is a guide for inspectors. And so this guide is for you all, the TPEP coordinators, and it includes an overview of the Indoor Clean Air Act, what it is, what your roles are, what the Oregon Health Authority's roles are in terms of enforcement of the law. It also includes a standard operating procedure related to site visits that may need to be conducted if a business is violating the Indoor Clean Air Act. It has an enclosed area protocol that Ilana will go over in more detail in a minute. That is one of the main changes that we would like to highlight on this webinar, because the way that enclosed area inspections have been done in the past is going to shift, and it's going to be different. So we have new forms and new procedures for that. So we want to make sure that everybody is aware of that. And then we also have updated the site visit forms. So the forms that you all use when you go out, if there is a violation, there are some slight changes to those documents. So those have been revised and posted online as an appendices to this guide. There's also a timeline that is included that has the key timelines that you all need to be aware of to make sure that you are going through the procedures and the steps in the right order and within the right timelines as laid out in the Oregon Administrative Rules. And then there's other documentation to guide inspectors through the process of conducting a site visit, or if they see a potential outside enclosed area, the things that need to be done to document that and how to move forward with that. And so we're not going to go over every single aspect of the guide today. We are going to go over the main changes, and it is really the responsibility of all of you TPEP coordinators to thoroughly read through the guide and look at all the appendices and make sure that you fully read and understand and are aware of all the things that are discussed in the guide. And if you have questions about anything, or if you're unsure of something, you can connect with myself or Ilana or your liaison for clarification around anything. But just listening to this webinar is not a comprehensive way to be aware of all of the changes that are happening around the Indoor Clean Air Act. So please make sure that you read the guide, print it out, take notes, whatever you need to do as well. Another document that is posted that we created is the Guide for Businesses. And so this is something that, feel free to take a look at this as well so you can see what the businesses are seeing and what sort of information they are receiving from us related to the Indoor Clean Air Act. But as I said, this is a more public-facing document. The other guide for you all is much more technical and in the weeds around your role, and this is much more high-level and layperson language around what the Indoor Clean Air Act is, and if there's a site visit that's being conducted at their business, what they should expect, so that they have clarity and consistency on what should and should not be happening during the site visit. Another thing that is going to be posted, this is not yet posted, we're in the final editing stages here within OHA, is an Indoor Clean Air Act video. So we worked with Jillian, who is the inspector for the Indoor Clean Air Act in Washington County, who's pictured here, and she helped us create a video that has high-level information about conducting a site visit or an inspection. And this is for inspectors to view at any time. So if you're about to go out and do a site visit and you don't have violations very often, this would be a helpful thing for you to look at to get on the same page and see how Jillian does site visits on a regular basis. It's also for a new person if they come in to get some tips about how to do site visits as well. And so this video is being finalized and will be posted in the coming weeks, and we will make sure to have it posted in the same area as the guide for all of the inspectors and the appendices that we will be talking about in a few minutes. Are there any questions about any of those key components before Alana goes into the key changes that have happened with the Indoor Clean Air Act process? All right, now I'm going to pass it to Alana to talk about the key changes.
Okay, thanks. So as Tara mentioned, I'm going to go over the main changes to highlight here in the process for education related to the Indoor Clean Air Act. So these are the changes that I'm going to go over and highlight. Again, in the manual, you'll see more than this. So once you read through it, you'll be able to see that there could be a couple of other sort of small changes, but these are really the main ones that we would like to highlight and for you to really focus on and let us know if you have questions, of course, about any of it, but these in particular could raise some questions. So the first one I'm going to go over is the actionable complaint. So we are now, when we look at, when you receive an email from our workplace exposure monitoring system, WEMS, notifying you that a complaint has been made in your county, you then go and need to make a determination on whether that complaint is actionable or not. So we are now moving towards ensuring that the complaint itself actually indicates a violation of the Indoor Clean Air Act. So they should only be marked actionable if they indicate a violation of the ICAA. So something like, drifting smoke is in the walkway, or I smelled smoke near the patio. These do not indicate violations of the Indoor Clean Air Act. But what does are complaints that indicate something specific, like people are smoking fewer than 10 feet from the door, or somebody is smoking one step outside of the exit, or obviously people are smoking or vaping inside the building. Things like that are violations of the Indoor Clean Air Act. And on the public facing page where the public employees of businesses as well can register complaints, we are currently updating the language. I believe that's going to be out next week, so that those who are making complaints have some guidance when they are registering those complaints. So they will there will be some language on there directing them to ensure that the language that they use is not vague and that it indicates a violation of the Indoor Clean Air Act if that's what they are actually seeing. So you'll be able to view that here in the next week or so as our IT department finalizes that. Any questions about that? Okay. The next change is related to sending the initial response letter, the IRL. So as you know, the IRL must be sent upon the first actionable complaint. And what we are asking you to do now is to send the IRL not only to the physical location of the business, but also to the corporate entity or registered agent. And in the manual are instructions on how to do this. And it really involves, it's a pretty simple step. It involves going to the Oregon Secretary of State website and typing in the business name, and then looking at the owner entity or registered agent. And the reason why we are asking you to do this now is to ensure that the owner of the business actually receives the initial response letter. So we've gotten some feedback about some instances where people are unsure that the letter was received. It's like there's some concern that they did not receive that initial notification and have the opportunity then to come into compliance before a site visit was made. So I or Tara or your liaison can walk you through this process, and it's a pretty straightforward process. The times when it's not straightforward are when the business is like a 7-Eleven or something, and you might find 150 entries for 7-Eleven, and we do not want you to spend hours doing this. And so if that's the case, just send it to the physical location. You don't need to click through every single one of those. That's fine. This is really just to send it to the corporate entity as best we can, but we know that we're not going to be able to do that in every case. Another situation you might see is that the business is just not registered with the Secretary of State, and that's also fine, and don't worry about that. So, you know, look for the corporate entity or its registered agent. If you can find that in, you know, a 5-10 minute search, please send the initial response letter to both of those locations. If you can't, that is also fine. You can just make note of that. And so we know that if we receive a citation packet, we know where the initial response letter was sent in the first place. Are there any questions about that? And again, this is in the manual. We walk you through how to do it. But again, for those who don't do this on a regular basis or don't have the businesses, don't have complaints on a regular basis, we can provide you with assistance when this does come up. Okay, one more note about the initial response letter is that, as you know, it is auto-generated in WEMS, and we ask that you do not revise the letter or edit it without talking to us here at OHA first. So we understand that there are certain circumstances where it might make sense to, you know, alter some of the language in the letter, and some of those instances might be related to local laws that are stricter than the Indoor Clean Air Act, and so we get that that happens sometimes. We just ask that you let us know and that you talk to us prior to just altering the letter and sending it out, because it is a letter that is sent on behalf of the Oregon Health Authority as the enforcement entity, so we need to make sure that we're aware of the language that is going in that communication. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is really the biggest change, and Tara mentioned this earlier, and that's the change related to the enclosed area procedure. So in the 2017 legislative session, the Oregon legislature passed Senate Bill 235, which has a definition of an enclosed area in that statute. And the definition that is in that legislation is this. It's up on the screen, and I'll just read it. Enclosed area means the entirety of the space between a floor and a ceiling that is enclosed on 3 or more sides by permanent or temporary walls or windows, exclusive of doors or passageways that extend from the floor to the ceiling. So it's a bit of a mouthful, but that is what is in statute. So as far as how that will apply here as we enforce the Indoor Clean Air Act, we are now asking that when local public health authorities see a potential outside enclosed area, that they document that area and send it to the Oregon Health Authority. So we here will be reviewing all of the potential outside enclosed areas after these areas are first identified by inspectors. So what does that mean exactly? So I'll start by giving you a definition essentially of what OHA considers a potential outside enclosed area. And that is a structure that is outside the main premises of a business, but that is associated with the business, so one that is at the same address. They are areas in which clients, patrons, residents, or other users might smoke or are permitted by the business to smoke or vape tobacco products or use inhalant delivery systems, and the structure appears to meet the definition of an enclosed area. An outside enclosed area could also be a stairwell, an outside apartment hallway, or other structure that is not designated or designed for smoking. So in the manual, in the policies and procedures manual, this is all laid out in terms of what the steps are and what OHA's guidelines are for walls and enclosed areas. So those guidelines that are laid out in the manual are really for your information only. As I said before, OHA will be making a determination on each one of these outside potential outside enclosed areas, so you do not need to make that determination yourself anymore. It's possible that this will occur or it's not possible, it will occur in some counties more than in other counties. So it's possible that you have never seen an outdoor enclosed kind of patio area of a business or any of those areas that I just mentioned in that definition. And it's possible that you see them on a weekly or monthly basis. So we are here to guide you through the process that I'm going to go over here in a second in either situation that you're in. So if you see this for the first time and you're not sure what to do, again, you should have read the manual and have a good sense of what to do. But you are always welcome to contact us here if you have questions, because we can provide you assistance about this process, particularly at the beginning as we begin to roll it out. So a potential outside enclosed area, again, if you encounter one of these areas, you will use the new site visit forms that we have created, and those are forms A, B, and C. We are asking you to take photos and or videos of the area, and again, that's laid out in the manual exactly kind of the angles of photos and where we would like you to take photos. That's also on the site visit form. We'd like you to email the documentation to OHA so that we can make that determination. And then you can use the enclosed area flow chart, which is one of the appendices, as well as the timeline to help guide you in this process. So just to give you a sense of what these forms look like. So it's possible that you would that this would not happen on the initial site visit. It's possible that you could be there for a follow-up visit or a post-remediation plan visit and encounter one of these areas. So on each of those forms, which are the standard forms 1, 2, and 3, you will be asked to note whether there is a potential outside enclosed area. If that is the case, you will mark yes, and you will fill out Form A, which is the site visit for the potential outside enclosed area. On Form A, you will be guided through the process, which basically asks you to look at the potential outside enclosed area and then sort of assuming that it's an enclosed area, are there violations inside the area? If there are violations inside the area, that's when we would like you to take the documentation. If you do not see any violations in that area, then you do not need to document the area and send it to OHA. So we are not asking inspectors to document every single potential outside enclosed area in the state and send it to us. We are asking you to document those that have violations of the Indoor Clean Air Act going on inside those areas. Does anyone have questions about that? Okay, so again, this is all laid out step by step in the manual, and so once you have read that, if you have any questions, let us know, and particularly once you have encountered one of these areas, we'd also like to hear back from you about that process. So we do not want you to assume that these areas are enclosed and work with the business immediately. We do want you to send all of these areas, if there are violations again inside, we do want you to send all of those areas to us, because OHA will make that determination in conjunction with our legal counsel. So please don't assume that areas are enclosed and sort of just move forward in the education and remediation process. Those should all come here to OHA. Any questions about that? Okay, here is a general timeline, and this again is one of the appendices that is that is included in the manual. And so this is the timeline for critical actions in Indoor Clean Air Act implementation. So this is the timeline for a standard site visit, basically. So we did not create timelines for each potential iteration of the site visit, but as you can see on the left, the steps for the sort of standard process are listed, and so you will still need to verify the complaint and send the initial response letter and verify the second complaint as indicated in the Oregon Administrative Rule. So that part has not changed. Once you go out for a site visit, this is when you will look for the potential outside enclosed area and then possibly document and send to OHA. And this is where the visits can sort of diverge a little bit. So you may be required to do an extra site visit to the location because of the presence of an outside enclosed area, and you might not, depending on what OHA's determination is. And so OHA, here we will provide you with a detailed rationale as to why the area is enclosed or not enclosed. And so based on that determination, that could change your site visit schedule a little bit, and you might end up having to do another site visit. So that rationale that we give you will be something that you will share with the business, but because we are coming to that conclusion here at OHA based on our policies and in conjunction with legal counsel, you do not need to explain further or parse the language or anything like that. It will be very clear on that form as to why the area is enclosed or not enclosed. And then we will encourage you to work with your liaison around entering these these site visits into WEMS. Again, it's explained in the manual how we will work with WEMS if there is a potential outside enclosed area, because we are currently still working within the current WEMS system, but we're looking at updating that system, although that could be several months away. So please work with your liaison for entering the site visits into WEMS. Any questions about that? Okay, these last two key changes are pretty straightforward. The first one is that we would like you to take photos of all observed violations. So in the past, you were able to just take some notes and photos if you sort of at your discretion, but at this point, we would like you to take photos of all the observed violations. We understand that that is not always possible, and we are not encouraging you to chase around people who are, smoking or vaping or anything. Just, as appropriate, but where possible, please take photos of the observed violations. One of the changes, and this is also noted in the site visit forms, is that we would also like you to list where the signs are absent or insufficient. So in the past, that was just a checkbox and, maybe some photos and maybe no photos as far as the signs go, but we would like you to write all of those down to ensure that there's no confusion or any kind of conflict around those areas with businesses. We've gotten some feedback, and we understand that it's possible that there was a sign and somebody took it down, or between the follow-up visit and the remediation visit, it's possible that an inspector noted one sign but not another sign, and so this sort of question as to why was this one noted on the first visit and not the second, or why was it not noted on the first one and now it's a violation on the second. So that to sort of cut down on that confusion, we are asking you to photograph and then list all the areas where those signs are absent or insufficient. And again, the site visit form will remind you of that as you move through the form during the inspection. And then the final key change that we are asking you to do is to no longer send us hard copies of the citation packets. So we would like all of those citation packets now to come to us via email only. And you will still send those packets to your liaison, but there is no need to package them all up and mail them through the regular post. We are asking that you keep the hard copies in your office, but you no longer need to send them here. Any questions about that? Okay, well, just want to let you know where we've housed these documents. So the Guide for Businesses is right on the Indoor Clean Air Act sort of home page or landing page, so healthoregon.org/morefreshair. The Guide for Inspectors is in HipConnect Connection. It is in the Indoor Clean Air Act Enforcement Toolkit. And here on the slide is the directions on how to get there if you don't have it bookmarked already. Also on this site, we will be posting the video and we will be updating some of the other documents that are currently on the site. And for those of you who have smoke shops in your county, we are going to be holding a call in the next 2 or 3 weeks. We will be holding a call for those who have smoke shops in their communities. We will be updating the smoke shop site visit forms and discussing some of the changes there, particularly as they relate to the rulemaking process that was completed last year in the fall after the Senate Bill 754 and 235 were passed by the legislature. So For those of you who have smoke shops in your communities, if you can hold off and not complete the annual site visits until we've had that call, that would be great, and that way we can go over with you some of the changes. If you have to make that visit, in the next week or two, if you could get in touch with your liaison and let that person know so that we can discuss with you some of the changes, we would appreciate that. But if you can hold off, that would be great, and we will again talk about the changes on that call just with that group. Any questions? That's all the content we have for you today. But if you have any questions, we're happy to answer those now. Okay. Well, in the 2 other webinars that we held for this for this topic and introducing the policies and procedures for the Indoor Clean Air Act, there were some questions that came up. We are we answered those on the call, and then we were looking at making sure that our materials are updated to ensure that those questions are answered. I would encourage you to again go and look at the guide for inspectors as well as the guide for businesses here in the near future. And if you have questions, again, reach out to your liaison. We're also looking forward to receiving your feedback once you are out in the field doing inspections with these new forms and with these new processes. We would like to hear your feedback so that we can ensure that it's the most effective and efficient process for education around the Indoor Clean Air Act. So just as a final slide, my contact information is up here. Again, this is Alana. You are welcome to contact me at any time. You are also welcome to contact Tara Weston, or your liaison if you have questions or concerns about any of the new processes or procedures. And with that, I want to thank you again for joining. Again, the slides as well as the recording will be up on the web here in the next week or so, so please look for that. And thank you again, and have a good day.